Good evening, and welcome to another Family Fest panel discussion. I am your host and moderator, Graham Vaughan, and welcome. It's really good to have you as we complete this year's Men's Week, July 2025, and with a very interesting discussion on mental health issues this evening, and we're looking to strengthen the family bonds. With me this evening are Dr. Janelle Chase Mears, Ryan Lewis, and Sean Springer. And very quickly, I'm going to ask you folks to come on screen and introduce yourselves in the same order I introduced you. Dr. Chase Mears, Mr. Ryan Lewis, and Sean Springer.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for the invitation, Graham. I am Dr. Janelle Chase Spears, mental health consultant with the Engineer Wellbeing Consultancy. I am also a certified grief recovery specialist, a wellness professional, and I have a passion for mental health and well-being through innovations and looking at care solutions.
Well, good afternoon to everyone and to the panel. I want to first say thanks to Family Fest for having myself here among these esteemed panelists, with Dr. J.C. Mears and Mr. Sean Springer, with you also too, Mr. Graham Vaughan. My name is Ryan Lewis. I think many persons have known my voice in recent times. I am a psychiatric nurse at the Barbara Psychiatric Hospital for well over 23 years, actually 24. I'm also the program lead for the National Anti-Stigma Campaign entitled Check My Bias. Mental health is so dear to me, and despite my pursuit as a professional, I think whether or not I would have been any professional, I'm pretty confident I would have found myself as a mental health advocate, which I advocate for persons that are, going through challenges with mental health daily, and I like to make relatable situations as we go through with our family life on a normal day-to-day basis to see how our mental health is often in check. And I'm hoping that this discussion will be fruitful for everybody that is listening and just for those that are not here that can benefit from the recording. I think there's a lot of information that will be shared and poured out today. So thanks for having me again.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So my name is Sean Springer. It's a pleasure seeing you guys again, Janelle and Ryan. I am a counselor with the Main Empowerment Network Support, where we provide counseling services for men on a whole. And one of the things that we recognize is that there are a lot of men who are currently experiencing in a state of not being mentally well, and it's a concern for us. Also, I am a psychological first aid instructor. Last I saw you, Ryan, is with that program, wonderful program that you guys are doing at the psychiatric hospital, where we do look to, highlight some of the myths that people have surrounding mental health and psychological issues in Barbados. And even in doing that course, I recognize just how much people don't know about mental health, mental well-being, mental illness, and how much of a huge stigma is still associated with it. So I'm glad to be on this panel, and I'm hoping that at the end of the discussion, as you said, Ryan, that we will be able to get somebody to understand something and be able to do something differently going forward. That's it.
Thank you very much, Sean, and welcome again to all our panelists. To all of you who are watching live, please remember on Facebook and YouTube, specifically Facebook, you can send in your comments and questions for the panelists while we're here this evening on YouTube as well. We will be looking at your comments and you can pass your questions on so that we can have the panelists address them this evening. Panelists, I want to start by throwing a curveball directly into the room and seeing what y'all do with it. I have heard it many times, especially recently. Some people are questioning the traditional definition of mental health, where mental health becomes something that must be protected and must be shielded from outside interference. You must protect your peace, protect your mental health. I have seen in recent times a different approach which says that mental health is meant to be used. If you evaluate it as a muscle, which can then be healthy or it can be strong or it can be weak, then that gives a better understanding of what mental health is and then how we can go about utilizing, not protecting, but utilizing our mental health in an accurate way to be able to respond to issues which come against us. So I'm going to ask the lady to start. Dr. Janelle Chase Mears, is that something that you are familiar with that slight shift in the way that people approach mental health? And is it something that you think bears merit?
Absolutely. And I would probably say that I'm probably one of the first persons within the Caribbean that have asked for that shift. And I'm glad you asked that question because I think when we use the word mental health, most of us are not using the same term. We're not using the same language. And we have used mental health to describe mental illness. And most people, when they hear the word mental health, they're talking about mental illness. They're really talking. So I always start with the baseline of what the World Health Organization talks about what mental health is. Just paraphrasing, it encompasses our emotional, physical, our psychological, social well-being, and it impacts the way how we think, we feel, and we act, and how we handle stress, build relationships, and make decisions. And it's more than just the absence of mental illness, it's the state of our personal well-being and how we cope with potential stressors like challenges. So if everybody understood that, we would not be having a conversation about illness. We would be talking about how do we help people think, act, feel better. And what we've done traditionally in the mental health field, and I always tell, I'm a mental health educator. I've worked at BCC and University of West Indies and University of Louisiana Monroe for the last couple of years. If we teach people about illness in one day, that's no fairness to the people who are providing the actual practice of helping people with illness because they're going to school for 6 years, 4 years in different disciplines. So what the shift is really asking people is to think about how that particular component of your body, because mental health is part of your physical body. Your brain is in your body, nowhere else, right? So how do you use your capacity to think better, to feel better, to understand better? But you have to teach that. We're not born innate with that. And so as we navigate the courses of life, the challenges of life, our experiences of life, where we don't have that skill, when we don't have that tool, for me, when I talk about mental health, I ask people what's in their mental health toolbox. You have to have tools to navigate the world. And I love experiential tools, but this is one that I use to talk about it. Like, how do you expand your capacity of what you don't know? And mental health, when you think about thinking, feeling, acting, most of us don't even know what our basic emotions are. So how are you trying to protect your emotions when you don't even know the emotions? In Barbados and the Caribbean, we get okay, cool, and fine. Those don't tell me anything about what you're doing, what you're experiencing. We don't have an emotional vocabulary. We don't have a physiological radar of how our body is attuned when we're underneath stress. So I think it's very fitting that we have almost like a definitive stance on what mental health is, what mental illness is, what cognitive decline is, what cognitive distortions are. Language matters when you're trying to improve solutions on mental health. And if you keep using the same words with the perception that everybody understands it or sees it through the same lens, sometimes you may be given the wrong solution to the wrong problem.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chase Mears. You said a mouthful, and I just want to drill down on the fact that you did address that we are experiencing a physical reality, regardless of where the consciousness is, where the mind is. We do interface with this physical reality through our brain, and mental health is about correctly addressing the stimuli from our physical world, mainly from our physical world. Our emotions are related to what happens in our physical world, not something. And apart from that, I would like to protect you and shield you from the responses of the gentlemen on the panel, for the simple reason that I feel like it was a sly dig at us with that color wheel. Men go, oh, this is red, this is blue, this is, and y'all women are over there chartreuse and men. So we will ignore that and we will go ahead and address what y'all think mental health is and how we should be thinking about mental health as we go into this discussion this evening. Mr. Lewis.
So great job at explaining what mental health is, JC. I couldn't have said it any better. But only thing I would add is that all of us exist on a continuum, and we need to understand that. So on one side, there's going to be mental health. In the middle, we're going to be experiencing mental health challenges through our entire lifestyle, my lifespan. And then on the opposite end is going to be our mental illness. And that is the dichotomy that Dr. Mears was speaking about, that we kind of interchangeably use mental health with the definition of what mental illness is. At one time I had a conversation with a lady, or rather attempted to have that conversation and asked her, can I speak to you about mental health? We were doing an outreach at one of the popular malls. And she said, no, 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 I don't want to talk about mental. I don't want a mental illness. I don't have no mental health, nothing like that. It's like, pardon me. And then I allow her to go. But what she really meant to say is that she didn't have a mental illness. But what she was really expressing to me is that she didn't have mental health. And mental health is something that we should all aspire to and yearn to have. So we go through different things in life. From the time we're educated from our mother's womb, it's about adaptation to this new environment. We just weren't accustomed to in that womb. We are educated. Now we have to learn to pray and let our mother know that we're hungry, that we need changing, that the outside is too hot, that insect just bit me. Then there's a transition from home to school, and then it's from doing exams, it's into doing interviews, into your mother coming home late and you're wondering if she's okay. So you experience loss, you experience migration, sometimes you go to the doctor, you're told you have a particular diagnosis, you have COVID, you have the flu, you broke your leg. And it's about understanding that mental health and mental illness is a medical issue. It's not personal failure. It's something that is not static, that we have to learn. And as you would have alluded to in your introduction, it's about building that muscle, about building capacity of how to adapt to these life changes that we are going through each and every day. We don't grow up or are born genetically know how to handle problems. This is something that has to be socially developed. And this social development occurs first and foremost in the home. So if you have a mother and a father who does not go to a therapist, or if they just cuss out one another when they're going through issues and they don't decompress and debrief, that's how you're going to grow up on knowing and understanding how to manage problems in life, later in life. And this is how it creates then to the dysfunctions in the family, which this topic is going to, I assume, is going to expand on how mental health then affects the family, because it has to start with mental health awareness, which has to then go into mental health literacy, which then we can see positive mental health behaviors being exhibited by persons and going and seeking out, talking about your problems when you're not, like Dr. Mir just showed the emotional wheel. A lot of the times we just know I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm sad, and that's it, baseline. But what about the other things that brings chaos and confusion into our lives? When somebody use our vulnerabilities to exploit for personal gain, and they cause to deceive us, or we feel conceited, and there are other exponential things that breaks down those basic emotions into more complex understandings. And a lot of the times then we just put what we can't put into language, we displace it on persons, we displace it on inanimate things, or we go to the rum shop and drink our problems away or sweep it under the carpet. So mental health is something that we need to take seriously, something that we need to build up and build capacity so that we can live a full life and not just focus only on our physical health.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Well said. Sean, I get the feeling that so far what has been said by Dr. Chase Mears and by Ryan has kind of been more of a establishing the fact that we are always using our mental health, regardless of whether or not we're mentally ill or we are mentally healthy in a positive way. That mental health is something that is a universal Skill, I heard Dr. Chase Mears use the word skill, and therefore it's something that's always tried and tested. It's always something that is going to be in use as we navigate this life. So therefore, mental health is a 24/7 thing that therefore we should be paying attention to, because it's like breathing. We don't think a lot about breathing until we've got a cold and then our sinuses are messed up or something. And therefore, we're recognizing, oh, I can no longer do this properly. I no longer have the capacity to do what I need to do properly. Is that an accurate assessment of mental health and the range then to where it descends into mental health illness?
Okay, that's a mouthful of a question you just asked. So what I'm going to try to do is to answer it the best I can. And granted, it's extremely difficult coming after Dr. J and Ryan. I think they both found that question so well. But one of the things that Ryan said I want to draw attention to is the fact about mental wellness being a continuum. Now, would you consider yourself to be in good physical health?
I believe so. I am told that after my accident 7 years ago, that if I had a single comorbidity, I would have died. So,
Okay, so you consider yourself, but are there some
yes,
days that you will feel ill
ill, yes. I get colds, I get
like
chills.
anybody
I
else?
had COVID, but I recovered.
And
Yes.
I want you to think about that then when you're thinking about mental health. You could be experiencing mental well-being or mental health, but you can still have a down day. You can have a down moment. But the whole thing about being able to realize one's potential, being able to cope with day-to-day stress, those are the things, being able to contribute towards our society. Those are the things for me that make up mental health and mental well-being. Now, granted, so you spoke just now about mental health, and then you also spoke about progressing to mental illness. So mental illness being something that can be clinically diagnosed, so we can go from as mild as maybe depression to as severe as something like schizo or one of those type of things. You can have a person who have been diagnosed with a mental illness still experiencing mental health or mental well-being because that person, thanks to things like medication, counseling, regulation, and so on, can still function at an optimum. Because remember, we're on a continuum, right? So a person with a mental illness can still experience mental well-being, if you understand what I'm saying. Janelle also mentioned something that I want to jump on, and the feelings chart that she showed and took back down so quickly. And you know, we talk a lot about emotions. And when I doing check-ins, and I'm quite certain Janelle does the same thing because she taught me at BCC, we do not take good as a check-in. It is too commonly used. People just say it, they don't even understand what it means. So what we normally do when I'm doing sessions, we started doing passing around the treatment, the feelings chart, so persons can get to understand this. And there's more to you than being angry or good, and I put that in quotation marks. There's just so much more. So then that brings up the topic, and I know it is not necessarily on the discussion, but we can't discuss mental well-being or mental health without looking at emotional intelligence, which is basically what Janelle was alluding to. And that basically is the ability to perceive, understand, express, and finally regulate one's own emotions and be able to recognize and respond effectively to the emotions of others. Now, if you're talking about being a function in a place of mental well-being or mental health, then we need to be able to understand um, emotional intelligence as it relates to that.
Thank you so very much, Sean. And now we are talking about mental health issues, but I want to I want to flip it this evening. Family Fest is here to bring help, hope, healing, and happiness. So let us start with some good mental health practices, good mental health exercises to help persons get a baseline of where they should be before we discuss how it affects the family and affects men more specifically when things go wrong. So I'm gonna jump on you quickly, Ryan, because Sean just answered, so I will go to Ryan. Um, Give us some simple things. I mean, I think I'll start. Spending time alone. And when I say spending time alone, I mean deliberately knowing that you are going out to be someplace that you enjoy. Go and sit down on a cliff somewhere and feel the breeze. Go and sit down on the beach and look at the water. Something that you enjoy, but something that you aren't going to share. That you are just going to allow this to be a time that you are going to feed yourself a positive experience. So
I was,
continue
I
from
would
there.
say, I would say even before that, start each and every day with gratitude. Open your eyes the next morning, and it's often half the battle won already. You don't have to have all the answers overnight or one sleep away. So just give thanks for the moment that you are now in existence, and give thanks for that spiritual being that you deem responsible for your very existence. I would also say take one day at a time, process things and try to break it down into its simplest matter. Yes, sometimes we say we want to be successful, but what does that look like by the hour, by the minute, by the day, by the week? A lot of the time, what we do is try to bite off more than what we can chew, and then we stress ourselves out when we are not reaching it. We can't really gauge, are we meeting our target, or is our target keep escaping us? The other thing is to be in tune with your mind and body. Sean alluded to it about emotional intelligence. So first, be self-aware. When you're going through a particular experience, document and inventory what the situation is having, what impact the situation is having on your body. Is it causing you to lose sleep? Is it causing you to eat more, or eat less? Is it causing you to be more stressed? Is it causing you to be incontinent of your emotions? Are you being wired to anger quicker? Or are you just withdrawing and isolating yourself from this particular situation that is discomforting and uncomfortable? Um, Other things like pay attention to deviations in yourself. A person that is usually well detail oriented, or like to be punctual, or like to be well put together in terms of the deportment and the address, is it that the opposite is true, that you have become more nonchalant? So you need to take things, and you said go to the beach. So that's where you focusing on you, and you do things to bring yourself back into that middle. Because remember, we spoke about being on the continuum. So when it just describes some of the things that will cause you a mental health challenge, that may push you towards the end of getting a mental illness or a mental health challenge. So you need to have your toolbox, as Dr. Mir spoke about, to bring you back to that middle or closest to having good and positive mental health. So things like going to the beach, eating well, taking your medications, taking rest, and stuff like that, debriefing your situation, and just talking things out. And these things cost you nothing. We haven't gotten to making an appointment to see Dr. Mears, going to the party clinic. We haven't spoken about anything like that. We just need to recognize who you are, what is happening that is causing to these changes, and then finding an anchor that kind of brings you back in and pull you back in.
You're muted. You're muted, Graham. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Ryan, I wanted to ask you to dive back into something, a comment you made that I thought was very interesting. And I think it actually reflects on a comment we have from YouTube from Basil Leslie. It says, correct me if I'm wrong, when most people hear mental health, the first thing that comes to their minds is a chronic disease like bipolar or schizophrenia or such like. And you just used a term, emotional incontinence. I was very, very fascinated by that. Can you drill down a little bit on that and explain what you mean by that? Because that
So,
imagery is fascinating.
so if you understand the word incontinence in its literal form, it means that you can't really control what is coming out of you in terms of your elimination needs. So if you think you're going to pass here, you're actually about to have some kind of stool event. right? So in terms of your emotions, because you're in an environment or a situation that has you so charged up that you get quicker to anger or you just withdraw from a particular thing. So what you're doing is actually reacting versus responding. Responding meaning that you're in direct charge of your emotions. You're not going to let nobody push your button, so to speak. So when you're reacting, it's like you just are conditioned to whatever stimulus is in the room, and that is actually controlling you as opposed to you controlling how you respond to this particular situation. And a lot of times it's because that you're not aware of who you are and how things are impacting you. And then this is where you need to develop your toolbox because you may be having some blind spots or you may just have a direct weakness and you just need to expand your emotional window so that when you go through these particular experiences, then that your reaction now becomes a response. It becomes intentional as opposed to something that is impulsive. And that's the difference between the two.
Wow. I think I like the idea of somebody not being sure what it is. You know, you think you're about to pass wind, but there's actually something solid there, and you're going to mess yourself up, is embarrass yourself. And we do that quite a bit, don't we, Dr. Chase Mears? Because you talk about the toolbox and such like, but the average person walking around, especially nowadays in an era of social media stressors and such like, would you say that we tend to be a lot closer to the mental illness or weak mental health side of things, or do you think we're doing pretty good?
Hmm.
Especially
That's
given the fact that a lot of us don't have these definitions and don't even know what we're looking at in the first place.
so that's a twofold question. I think sometimes when you don't know a problem is not is a problem, it doesn't bother you, right? So I think coming from that perspective, but I do believe that we are mental health, brain health illiterate, and that is a lot of us. I can't put a percentage, but if I go back to who I teach, my counselor psychologists don't know anything about mental health till they get into the master's program. My first year social workers, they don't have this knowledge. We're teaching this knowledge so they could go out and help people. And that's what I alluded to. So sometimes when we're offering the solutions of helping people with illness, people will have to be in the right frame or right thinking experience to actually absorb that information. And so I think we do have to teach and going and adding on to Ryan's list. I have a comprehensive list when we talk about how do we teach mental health. Basics is biological. So do we teach about sleep? There's something called a glymphatic system, the same way how we have a lymphatic system. A glymphatic system exists in our brain that when we sleep, that system comes up and chomps up all the gunk of your day. And it helps all of those negative thoughts or those ants to disappear because you're getting rest. Any of us that don't get sleep, we could become cranky, irritable, low mood, low affect because of lack of sleep. I think about nutrition, right? And alluded to that. And nutrition is also based on your lifespan development. What stage of life are you on? So a 3-year-old is going to be hyperactive if you keep giving that child Conquerors, Rare Fruity, and it's quick to say they got ADHD, but it could also be that the child it has a poor nutrition and food fuels performance. So I always tell people choose what type of performance you want to have based on the food that you eat or vice versa. You want to think about play because we are childlike as long as we're living. We all like to laugh, we like to enjoy ourselves, we like to have a creativity and freedom. And so when rules are imposed on us, our brain, it restructures our brain, especially if the rules don't help us socially engage well. You want to think about movement because movement is what gets the waste out of our body. And if you have waste in your body, you're going to have wasteful thoughts, right? A lot of people who have mental health challenges or mental health distress or mental illnesses, when you look at it, the type of movements that they do, directly impact their well-being, their psychological well-being. You also want to think about breath because blood flow to the brain is very important to deal with your own mental health if you want it to be well. We don't breathe well. There's so many, I go in so many trainings, especially with helpers who their shoulders are all the way up here. They're stressed out, they're overwhelmed, they don't stop to pee, they don't stop to eat, and they don't breathe. So whenever something happens, they hold their breath, they bite their tongue. That impacts the way how you think. And we know stress kills. So there are a lot of people who haven't spoken a lot that get a lot of strokes, and they tell people this season, stroke season, you don't come out the hospital in stroke season. Not this new season. Before a stroke would be a warning. Now taking out people, so breath, oral health. A lot. My sister lives overseas, and she always says to me when she comes back, she say, "What's up with all these babies that don't have no teeth?" Right? I'm smiling pretty, pretty, pretty. But your nervous system actually starts here. And when you don't take care of your mouth, your teeth, you're creating chronic situations, inflammation in your mouth, which is going to impact your spinal cord, which is going to impact your brain health, is going to impact oxygen flow. So we don't think about things like cavity and gingivitis, and all of those things are actually impacting our mental health. Toxins in the environment. So do you have a toxins check? Some of us are living in conditions, heat also impairs the way how we psychologically view the world. Digital health, you alluded to that. And we're living in an age where we cannot ignore that the neurotransmitters with regards to when we see too much screen time, blue screen, the amount of scrolling that we're getting, how it dumbs down our capacity to think and feel, the parts of the brain that are no longer excited because we're doing everything digital, right? These things are, to me, these are basic things when we think about what's in our mental health toolbox to start it off. But these things have to also be culturally contextual, and it also has to be lifespan development contextual. So what's for me at somebody who's in my 40s is not going to be the same for somebody who's in their 70s, right? And do they and we actually create spaces for people to understand what each part of our body needs. I tell people, I'll finish on this note. When I ask people about temper tantrums, parents say, your child get that? Yes, it's get temper tantrums. And I said, when would they have learned between the ages of 2 to 4 how to articulate what that body is telling them to experience? And that's where our emotional language starts. So you have a situation where the child flailing around doesn't mean you wicked. It's the body's way of saying there's something wrong and I don't have the words to articulate it, but the movement tells you that I'm in distress. And the one thing that we don't understand as humans as yet is that we co-regulate each other's mental health. So even go to your being self-aware, but you learn self-awareness through an awareness of another person. So if we talk about a powerful tool, is to have people in your toolbox who know how to co-regulate your experience. And that is at any age, because we're all experiencing distress, life challenges at any point of our life, including, as Ryan said, the first trauma of our experience is childbirth, because you come out having to adapt. So, for me, those are my basic things. If we're going to talk about creating good mental health structures and good mental health bonds, if you're not doing those things, it is only going to be a matter of time before you go on that continuum to the right. Yeah.
All right. That was quite something to take in, but all in the spirit of education and fantastic. Thank you. I learned quite a bit in that statement just now. Uh, we are Family Fest. And I think, Janelle, you just introduced perfect segue to getting into the influence of mental health issues on the family, because you're just talking about co-regulating our emotions and our emotional responses, which I think, as a Christian, that God created the family for. For us to learn from each other what a human being is and what a human being is capable of, and to understand that a human being is not just me and sometimes responds in ways that I am not prepared for. And therefore, we need to be able to learn to manage our behaviors in the sphere of community and understand that we affect each other and others affect us, which is what we're talking about. So, Sean, let's get into the family space now. Let's start with the parents, and of course, one half usually is the man. Uh, let's talk about mental health issues affecting the man and a male response to the need to be. I don't want to go down the road of the strong man because I think that's a cliche that has been overdone. Because a strong man cannot be strong outside of the ability to respond correctly, and you need to be able to take a step back and recognize when you've gone overboard, or something has happened that you're not able to process, and you have to deal with these things. But talk to us about the responsibility of the man to be able to help guide his family through these processes of learning to co-regulate, and the fact that he needs to take a step back and receive from his family as well. How is a man able to do that, the men that are listening right now?
Graham, these questions are a lot more loaded than you seem
We
to
we
think
have we
they
have
are.
very short time. I'm sorry. I
Let me tell you, these
apologize.
questions are extremely loaded. You see, the challenge is that we start with an assumption that may not be fair to men. And because you asked me about men, I speak to the issue of men, but I think it is the same way across the both male for parents on a whole. We start with the assumption that parents know how to parent. That is an assumption that in most cases is not correct. We start with the assumption that our father was fathered and therefore knows how to father. Again, if you check the society, majority are made up of single parent headed by who? Mothers. So when we talk about the role or the duty of a man and how do we get men, we have to talk about resocializing our men on a whole. We have to start by teaching men lessons that we didn't. I could speak for myself. My father never taught me. Parenting is probably, no, not probably, parenting is the most important job any man would ever have. Being a father is the most important job any man would ever have, but it's a job he had the least training to do. And you know what? He can mess up. I will mess up. I messed up as a father. But the thing is now, how do you learn from that experience and go forward? That's the question. So the job starts even before pregnancy. If you're really planning properly, the job starts even before pregnancy. But if you're not planning, it starts from pregnancy. The type of relationship you have with the mother of your child. And I can't say the spouse or the girlfriend because it may not be the girlfriend. But the way you treat that lady when she's pregnant starts the process of teaching that unborn child how to treat the mother, how to treat spouses on the road, how to be a responsible male or female, depending on what the child is. Then at birth, and you being there during the process of birth, you being there in early childhood, because the psychologists will tell you, Janelle will tell you that by age 7, 85% of a child's character is already developed. So those early years and the impact that you have or the role that you play. So this thing of I going off to work to make the money to send home or bring home and the mother raising the child, that doesn't always work. They need to be present. And even we have fathers who may be present in the house, but their presence is missing. You need to be present and you need to have your presence felt. You need to have support structures in place for men. Well, you would know that I work with men, the organization Men's. And we have tried on numerous occasions to get men. Janelle has even offered her services and her wonderful place that she has it with her to assist our men. The men just aren't interested. They just do not come out. We have a group of men, almost 100 participants in the group, and they very often cry out about feeling disadvantaged, not knowing where to turn when it comes to legal matters of paternity and so on and so forth. And we went as far as to bring a attorney at law. We brought a social worker, persons with over cumulatively over 30 years experience to address the issues that the men were raising in the chat. And Cornelius is in that same chat too, so he know what I'm talking about. And on the day, like 8 men turn up. 8 men. So we have, I don't know how we're gonna get it done. We've been trying. So if you have some ideas, or Ryan or Janelle have some ideas, please share. How can we get, I honestly don't know how we can get men to stand up and take the place that, God had designed for them to take as the head, and understanding what the head is, but it is something that we're trained to do on a daily basis. Currently, we're working with about 13 young men between the ages of, let's say, 15 and 21, trying to get them to stand up and be leaders as well in their community. It's an ongoing process. We can't give up the fight, but it's a challenge.
Can we start earlier? And that's to all three. What do you think about starting earlier? What do you think about if the Ministry of Education were to be able to, were willing to say, Dr. Chase Mears, we're going to give you 3 sessions a term to come and speak with some of the children at a primary school. Okay, would you be willing to say to children to help steer them? Because Sean talked about by the age of 7, but I think there's still some wiggle room that we can get in there where the children are able, and I recognize that these are things that, as was said earlier, should be coming from the family, but the family isn't trained, so it's a little difficult. You can kind of in a catch 22 because the men are not trained to teach boys to become men, and the women are not trained to teach women, girls to become women. So we need people with expert understanding to be able to step in. I want you to speak as though you're speaking to some of those children now. I'm going to give each of you the chance to address this. Break it down. You're speaking to some 7 to 11-year-olds in a primary school about being healthy, about understanding themselves, and about growing in a way that they feel comfortable to reach out and say, I am not doing well. I feel sick mentally. Can you help me?
I'll jump on, and I would say I actually wouldn't have that conversation with those children. And here's why. And the topic going off of Sean as well too. If you look at our primary school system, if you look at our education system, our secondary school system, how many men exist in the school? So this is me. This is no me putting on my personal hat. Graham, you are familiar with my husband. My husband passed away when I was 27 years old. I have a teenage boy now. This is 17 plus years. The reality of it is that he did not grow up with a male in the household, but I was sure to put second chance fathers in his life. I made a pact to myself that any extracurricular activities that he entered into, a female would not be the one teaching him. So if he did music, that was a male teacher. If he went and play a sport, there's a male teacher. Because when you look at what was happening in his primary school, there was 2 males, security and the PE teacher. Now here I'm going back to Sean's point. in relation to, we're expecting then us to teach. And the thing about it is, even when you teach children, you say to children, this is for your well-being and this is how you need to ask for help and all that stuff. I would rather teach them the brain. Like, this is how your brain works. These are the parts. And when this feels, this is what is happening. Because that's what I had to do with my son. Like, if you feel this way, this is what is going on with your body. It's not about me, or you can ask. And those were the things that I did to help him. But a lot of it is that you have people within systems who themselves don't know how to have these conversations with the children. So even if Ryan going there 20 times a term, but actually, the research has shown that if we would need more than 3 sessions, right, Ryan? We would go in there every week, actually, and have sessions and include sessions with music and play. Professor Fred Hinklin, psychiatrist, a neuroscientist out of Jamaica, did this in the school system, right? And he said what was impactful was not only how the children changed, but how the teachers and the educators and the school and the church nannies started to pick up on how they needed to incorporate better levels of care and emotional regulation with the children. I think we place a lot of emphasis on getting children and adolescents straight with giving them this information. But even if you give them this information, which adults they go and practice it with, you know? So for me, I think sometimes our interventions of will give, I say teach the body. I'm a teach, you cannot lead what you don't know. So if you don't know your body, you can't lead it well. So if I were to answer your question without answering, I say teach the body to these children. This is your brain. These are the types of emotions that come. I actually just ordered a neuroscience coloring book, so you can see where the sympathetic nerve goes, all of that stuff. Because if you don't know how your body works, how you train to help it, how you getting out of signs of distress. But I think it's not just here, but I would say 12 sessions. We're not doing it 3 sessions, but it still has to have support. It has to have a comprehensive experience of it. That's how I'm going to answer it without answering it. Hopefully it made
Sean,
sense.
no, it made perfect sense, and that's the reason that we get people who are experts in the field to tell Graham, no, you're completely wrong. I will go at it from this direction. I have no problem with that. Sean, what would you add to that?
Yeah, well, I agree with 100% with Janelle. I mean, when you said 3 sessions a term, I jumped because 3 sessions a term really not going to do anything. And then the other thing is that, as Janelle just said, and I've found this working with teens and parents for well over 20 years. I was going to say, but maybe closer to 25 years or so. So we have some children that are considered to be troubled teens, and they send them to us to work with these children to teach them communication skills, respect, how conflict management, anger management, all these things they send them to us to teach, and we teach them these things, and then they go back home. Do I need to say any more? And then they go back home. So as Janelle just said, when we have these sessions, and I say the ministry decides, oh, let's jump on this bandwagon. Let's bring some professionals in. Let them talk to these children. Let them get to be able to express themselves, express the emotions. Because, I mean, not only with children, because I was at a workshop with Janelle recently. This is the one at Hilton, Janelle. And Janelle did a feelings check. Let's say you had 20 persons in the room, Graham. 20 persons in the room, and you're doing a feelings check. How many emotional feelings do you think were identified? How could it be 20?
I'll go with four.
2. More like 2. 18 of the 20 would more than likely say some type of physical feeling. Only 2 persons will be able to identify an emotional feeling. So don't even start with, I mean, yes, we need to deal with the children, but again, when we take a child's feelings chart, into the primary school. So you have the little smiley faces and so on. And we teach the children about emotions and understanding emotions. And we even teach these children about assertive communication and getting to speak from the place of I and this type of thing. And then they go home. What happens when they get home? And so I'll pass on to Ryan from here.
I agree and I concur with Bernie to say it will not teach your children nothing.
Yeah.
Because not that they're not worthy of to be taught of these particular type of things, but it has to have a balance of how it is going to be received in the home. We got to understand that at home, that's the first level of teaching that a child goes through in our Caribbean cultural context. It is where we first experience love. This is where we learn to develop trust. This is where we learn to manage our emotions. We all had a caring granny. We all had a protective uncle, an auntie that was like a second mother, or a brother that, or a cousin that was like a brother. So when we grow up in a home that is just full of negativity, anxiety, neglect, shame, things that push us into silence, and then to go into school to teach that child how to emotionally express himself, but it is dulling and dampened when they are home and it is not fostered, then it's almost you're going to confuse and create a chaotic situation for that child. So I would say that we need to target the parents. And even if you remember the men on the panel, Graham and Sean, you way when a boy child falls versus a girl child falls, it's different. And the girl child falls, we're gonna take them up, we're gonna dust them off, we're gonna hold them, we're gonna give them an ice cream bar, ask them if they want their favorite toy, a teddy bear. But when that boy child falls, what does it off? We praying for, try and get up and gonna use a boy. Because when he expresses emotions, it's almost you're saying that you don't want a girl child in your house. So you have dampened that possibility of that child to really emote and say, you know what, I am not okay, I'm not well, this is hurting me, because we have grown men socially to be stoic and unemotional. So when they become adults and young adolescents, what do you think that they're going to continue to be? They're not going to express themselves. They're going to tough it out because society says, you're a man, tough it out, work it out. Just get the money, get these things done, and don't worry about how you're feeling. That's unnecessary. But women have been wired and socialized to say, you know what, take inventory of what you're going through. If you're going through a bad relationship and you feel like the man is harming you and you feel as if you're being mistreated, document that, write in your diary, say how it made you feel, what if it made you stop sleeping well, if you stop eating, and if you were able to inventory causation and impact. A man does not do that. It may be an outlier for exception to the rule, but it's not the general rule of thumb for a man. Even myself as a male, I've learned to change that status quo over time after being in the practice of mental health nursing. But before that, it was not socialized. So we need to start it from young, and as Sean alluded to reach and get it embedded before age 7. When we look at the book for the immunization schedule, you got hearing tests, you got immunization schedules, you got the eyesight test at age 5 and so on. There's no mental health checks in that schedule. I believe it should be indoctrinated that we should have mental health checks. First school entry and maybe the transition at 11 plus to see how you're faring. So that if you have a mental health challenge in your social dimension, in your environmental dimension, in your financial dimension, that we can flag it early and seek to mitigate and address it sooner rather than allow mental health challenges to develop into mental health disorders. Jesse Mayer said it brilliantly at the beginning. Maybe what you do in terms of your nutrition, you maybe need to change that, because if you're not feeding your child and just creating an inflammatory environment internally, then you're gonna onslaught this person with medication that just need a change in lifestyle behaviors. So we need to do it from the beginning, and we need to get parents to understand, and we need to get parents to heal themselves, because we don't only pass on our positivity, we pass on and spill everything that is unhealed with us. It's like having an open wound, not putting a plaster or getting it sutured and just allowing it to spill. So all the gangrene and all the toxins is going on everything that you touch and interface with. So we need to heal as parents so that we can heal and pour into our children positively, so that we can continue a positive contagion. Right now, the trajectory that we are on, parents just doing the basics. We making money, making ends meet. Sean said there's a lot of single parenting. I grew up in a time where we had the extended family, the whole village raised me. I couldn't do nothing. The shopkeeper would call my mother and said X, Y, Z. When I got home, I would have been spoken to. The other thing is that we need to start disciplining honesty. We ask a child, what did you do? Oh, I did something. It was bad. Yes, it was bad. Acknowledge it was bad. But then you lash the child. That's the first step that you do to that child. That child will never be honest to you ever again because they don't want that lash that's going to come. That's negative. So we need to really embrace the honesty. We need to embrace the openness, the communication, allow them to speak out, to say I'm not okay, and help them navigate. And I understand parents. I understand the anxiety. You don't have to have all the answers. And this is where support systems comes in. If your family can't offer it, if your friends can't offer it, if your church can't offer it, if your colleagues at work can't offer it, then there are professionals like Dr. Mir at the psychiatric hospital, mental clinics, and all the polyclinics. There's somewhere that you can reach out and get out to get some help and some answers and learn and change the literacy, change the language, change the level of awareness. And then obviously this should be commensurately seen directly in the change of our behaviors, how we treat one another on the street, how we treat one another at work, how we treat one another at school. And that child will be more open, succinct, and be able to say, you know what, I need help. I need help with this particular thing and not feel shame that they're the problem, but really the problem is society's definition of what normal and not normal is and what mental health and mental illness is the actual problem.
I am absolutely traumatized by the fact that we are basically out of time. And I feel like we've just started, just started. What I'm going to do is to latch on to something Ryan said just now. I'm going to ask each of you, Dr. Janelle Chase Mears, Mr. Ryan Lewis, Mr. Sean Springer, I'm going to ask each of you to offer one of those places of help that people going through, if they've sat down and listened to this program, they're aware I need help. Not that they have a mental illness, but that I need more information. I need to build myself so I can build my family. Give them one place, each of you, that they can go, and as we wrap up.
So I'm gonna just say we need a part two. um, and I would plug myself, my group,
Not a
re-engineer
problem.
well-being.
Please do.
Because what my team, we are about 14 strong Caribbean nationals, because I think mental health is a Caribbean context challenge. It is not a Barbadian challenge. And if we continue to help it just in Barbados isolation, because they got a lot of Guyanese, Vincentians, St. Lucians that live here, and a lot of Bajans that live overseas, and we interplay with each other. So my team hails from St. Lucia, Trinidad, Guyana. We're trying to get into Antigua, bring in some people from those spaces, so people can also have a cultural context of learning about what is happening within their own mental space of where they're from. We have this thing called, we do it freemium. So we have free resources, we got premium services, right? And some of the resources that we have done at Re-Engineer Wellbeing, and I'll put it in the chat, reengineerwellbeing.com. Last year, August, I traveled, I did a self-care mental health retreat, and with 14 ladies, and we recorded 2 meditation, breathing and gratitude meditations, Caribbean meditations that speak and sound like us. We also have a series, I don't have it on my table. We actually created, this is work that myself and my Alabastide, a counseling psychologist from Trinidad, we created a journal in the Caribbean Sun, a 30-day guide to mental health and well-being. She did all the illustrations, but also with the backgrounds. I am the one that did all the quotes and the activities that you would have to do. And we also have a free journaling program where you can learn how to journal and manage your emotions. So we have free resources there for people to engage with art therapy. Sean will know that that's one of the activities we did when the men did come. Like there are things that, that don't have to include the crisis part of mental illness care.
Well,
And that's
Doc,
my biggest thing.
my apologies. My apologies for crossing you. I'm going to ask you because a lot of people are going to watch this. A lot of people are going to want to know. Please give the phone number.
I give the website.
Oh, give the website.
Yeah, we
Okay,
give the website because near well-being. Yeah. Because
reengineeringwellbeing.com.
everybody that's hearing this is not from Barbados. People are
Yes.
hearing this from all over the world. So we want to be more accessible to people. And for the most part, everybody has Wi-Fi. And so we set up, you can go there, book consultations, or see if it's just something that you want to use. I just put it in the chat.
Okay. Ryan Lewis. And feel free to say we are a place, my outfit is a place that you can get this out from.
Yes, definitely. So on behalf of the Psychiatric Hospital, you can access our services voluntarily, and we are now in process of changing the MEDAF Act via the National MEDAF Commission of Barbados. And you would have seen Dr. Sue speaking about the involuntary admissions. It's going to be almost like a thing of the past, except for in those extraneous circumstances. But they're going to have a lot of changes that is going to be person-centered. You can access all our services at all the satellite departments across the island in all the polyclinics. So whether it's Lee Polyclinic or Frederick Miller, St. Scott, Edgar Cochrane, Maurice Blair, and the whole charade, just see our socials at Psyche Hospital, PSYCHA Hospital across all social media platforms. I will also say to contact in those emergency cases, the assessment unit at 536-3091, or you can also utilize the medium of Lifeline Barbados via the Ministry of Health and Wellness at 536-4500. And those are just some of the services. If you go on our socials, you can also download there will be a QR code that scans to a MEDAF directory. And what the MEDAF Commission has done is collate all the public and private services, whether it's a social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, occupational therapist, all the hotlines, all the lifelines, and so on, in one directory at your fingertips. Is a resource to share in your community, in your spaces at work, at school, and just make that informed decision of how to attend to your mental health. So that's my
Fan-
plug.
Fantastic. One-stop shop. That's what we need. Sean, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So it's only obvious. I'm going to point to the direction of Men Empowerment Network support. I know we spoke a lot about the family. At the end of the day, we recognize that, we really need to reach our men. So I'll point you, we do see women as well, but Men Empowerment Network support, the telephone number is 850-6367 or 850 MENS. That's the telephone number. We're on Facebook. We're on IG, men_empowerment_network_support. So we're on Facebook, we're on IG. You can call the number. Actually, recently we started functioning as a 24, full-time service. So you can call anytime as well if you need that support. So I would encourage persons to reach out to MENS. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel satisfied that we have snipped off the first 0.001 centimeters of where we needed to go in this mile that we needed to dig through. But I am very grateful because a start is good. And I believe that I can count on you all, as Dr. Chase Spears said, we need to have a part two. And I believe I can count on you all to respond when Family Fest calls you so that we can have that. Because we need to go further into this issue, into discussing and bringing about the change that needs to occur in these societies, these Caribbean societies, as Dr. Chase Mears said, as far as mental health and our understanding and response to mental health is concerned. Thank you so very much for being here. That's the end of today's panel discussion. mental health issues, strengthening family bonds, and it is also the end of Men's Week. Coming up starting on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Tune in again to Family Fest Barbados 2025, Family Fest Month 2025 for the beginning of Women's Week, and it's going to be very interesting. So until next time, God bless and take care.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking